Welcome, age of vintage society. Gina Lollobrigida, who is redolent of another screen siren, Sophia Loren, would become known as the Mona Lisa of the 20th century. She could mesmerise with owl-like eyes, as brown and as rich as cinnamon, and beguile her audience with her evocatively seductive voice. Opulent, carnal, bewitching, earthy, vital, vibrant, elegant, imperial, an ambassadress of Italian glamour to the world. How Gina Lollobrigida made Marilyn Monroe look like a child star. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. One look at Gina Lollobrigida during the 60s will make you understand why she was once termed the most beautiful woman in the world, based on the beauty pageantry that she contested in and won. However, beyond the exceptional features and gorgeous figures, she has achieved success in all her endeavours. In the 1950s and early 1960s, she had an excellent profile as a European actress, and she was also known as an international sex symbol. She is the Mona Lisa of the 20th century, an actress whose reputation as the world's most beautiful woman lasted through the 50s and well into the 60s. Possessed of an unfeasibly voluptuous hourglass figure, 36, 22, 35, and an equally perfect pout, she was destined for sex goddess status, even if she insists she always played character roles. Humphrey Bogart, her first co-star in Beat the Devil, said she made Marilyn Monroe look like the child star Shirley Temple. This Italian pin-up, along with Sophia Loren and Brigitte Bardot, was emblematic of a brand of post-war European sexuality that America happily imported. She also starred alongside Frank Sinatra, Errol Flynn, Burt Lancaster, Sean Connery and Yul Brynner, stretching her low-cut outfits, if not her acting skills, to breaking point as the smouldering love interest. Some of her most notable films include 1956's The Hunchback of Notre Dame and 1959's Solomon and Sheba, where she appeared as the sexually charged queen. She also earned a Golden Globe for her 1961 romantic comedy Come September, alongside Rock Hudson. Gina seems to have elicited real passion even from Rock Hudson. "I don't think he was homosexual then. People can change," she says. "When we did our love scenes he was quite normal. He liked me very much. I felt something. It was more than a kiss. He was the most adorable person I ever worked with." Meanwhile, she was pursued across continents by some of the world's richest and most famous men, including Prince Rainier of Monaco. But the Hollywood career of La Lola was delayed, thanks to Howard Hughes, whose obsession with Lollobrigida led him to keep her virtually imprisoned in a Los Angeles hotel and sign her to a contract that made it essentially impossible for her to work for any other US producer. Lollobrigida represented an exotic European glamour that fascinated American moviegoers. Over the course of her career, she's taken a lot of twists and turns and never settled for second best. When she tired of acting, she picked up photography, and later in life she turned to philanthropy. Lollobrigida is a true inspiration to anyone who's ever thought about making a big change later in life. Gina was born in Subiaco, a community in Rome, Italy, and was raised by her dad, who produced and sold furniture. The family also included her three sisters, Maria, Juliana, and Fernanda. The amazing woman began her modelling career at a tender age, as she was seen in different beauty contests. The connections she earned at that period got her some minor roles in Italian movies. As Italy dug itself out of the war's rubble, the voluptuous La Lola, as she was dubbed, virtually embodied the country's newfound energy and glamour. Much of it was manufactured at Cinecittà, the Roman film confectionery. She was summoned after a talent scout spotted her outside Rome's Academy of Fine Arts, where she was studying drawing and sculpture. As Gina recalls, however, she didn't care to go to any audition, but they insisted, she says, referring to studio executives, as we sit down to chat in a dimly lit library. "I refused when they offered me my first role. They insisted again. They asked my mother to convince me and said they would pay me 1,000 lira. so I told them my price was 1,000,000 lire, thinking that would put a stop to the whole thing, but they said yes. Thus a pattern was established. La Lola got whatever she wanted because, basically, she didn't care. I was successful very early, she explains. I never had to ask for what I wanted. I just had to say yes, because they always offered me so much more. At one point I had in my contract, in addition to 10% of the gross, approval of my co-star, the director, and the script. Lollobrigida's initial roles were small, but she began playing leading parts in 1949, and by the early 1950s her film status in Europe was set. She made her English-language movie debut in John Huston's farce Beat the Devil, starring with Humphrey Bogart and Jennifer Jones. In 1949, Lollobrigida married a refugee Yugoslav doctor, Milko Skofic, who became her manager. With her growing importance in Italian films and her driving ambition, the actress launched herself in the international film arena. By the early 1950s, La Lola, as she was dubbed, was one of continental Europe's most famous stars. Ephraim Katz notes that the French even coined the word Lollobrigidienne to describe the curvaceous female form. Her most ardent and persistent admirer was Howard Hughes. Beginning in the 1920s, the business magnate had independently produced a number of blockbuster pictures, such as Hell's Angels and Scarface. In 1948 he gained control of RKO, then one of the major studios. His infatuation with La Lola began in 1950 when he saw publicity photos, taken by Skofic, of a 23-year-old bikini-clad Gina, who, at that point, had appeared in a few Italian films but was not well known. Hughes, then 44, quickly located the ingenue and invited her to Hollywood for a screen test. She accepted, with the expectation that her husband could accompany her. Not surprisingly, just before their planned departure from Rome, only one of the two promised plane tickets arrived. "But my husband trusted me," said Lollobrigida. "He said, 'Go, and I don't want you to say one day that I didn't let you have a career.' So I went alone." Upon her arrival at Los Angeles International Airport, she was met by Hughes's agents, who installed her in a suite at the Townhouse Hotel, a luxurious establishment of the day on Wilshire Boulevard, staffed with her own secretary, chauffeur, though Hughes didn't like her seeing any man but him, English coach and voice teacher. She was given a script to rehearse, a divorce scene. The trip lasted 2.5 months, during which time she saw Hughes daily, fending off his passes continuously. Time and time he tried to get to me, but he didn't succeed. I wanted to be correct. Not to say that she didn't enjoy his company, odd though he could be. He was very tall, very interesting, she said. He had 2 jackets and 1 pair of pants that he wore every day, full of dust and dirt, like a worker's. He hated being seen by the press, so we always went to very cheap restaurants and sometimes ate in the car. I spoke very little English then. Howard Hughes taught me the swear words. There was just too much difference between us, she said, explaining why she didn't accept his proposals. I said to him, "If you lose all your money, then perhaps I'll marry you." Maybe he was surprised that there was one person who wasn't interested in his money. Then my husband realized it was time for me to come home, she continued. Before she flew back to Rome, however, Hughes presented Lollobrigida with a 7-year contract. The document made it exorbitantly expensive for any other American movie studio to hire her. I signed it because I wanted to go home, but for the better part of a decade Hughes continued to pursue her. He didn't give up. He sent all his lawyers to see me. They played tennis with my husband. In retrospect, she might have done things differently. I was too innocent at the time, she admitted. I later realized he was a very interesting man, more interesting than my husband. The Skofics divorced in 1971, though she says they had been drifting apart for some time. While the divorce left her a free woman, she had to contend with advances from admirers, some of them married. His Serene Highness Prince Rainier III pursued her for years, she says. During his marriage to Grace Kelly, he was not very subtle. He would make passes at me in front of her, in their home. Obviously I said no. "My God, at least do it carefully, not in front of her," she told him. He was burned up at me for 20 years for refusing him, but after she died, he forgot about that and we became friendly again, she added. Gina Lollobrigida captivated audiences when she rose to fame in the 50s and 60s, but now the most beautiful woman in the world is sharing a dark secret about her past. The Telegraph reported Lollobrigida that she was sexually molested twice. The first horrifying incident occurred when she was 19. The first time I was 19, I was still going to school, Lollobrigida recalled. The second time, well, I'd rather not talk about it. I was married and I was starting out in films. Lollobrigida refused to identify the men who molested her, however she mentioned one was Italian and the other foreign. Still, Lollobrigida was determined not to let her terrifying encounters prevent her from pursuing a career as an actress. I have never made any compromise, remaining independent and always alone. My strength is my free spirit, and my great imagination gives me strength and vitality. Lollobrigida's film career slowed after 1970, and she shifted focus to follow successful career paths as a photojournalist and a cosmetics firm executive. She began taking photos of her celebrity friends and even politicians as a photojournalist. While she captured shots of stars like Paul Newman, Audrey Hepburn and Ella Fitzgerald, her most fascinating triumph came from the interview she was able to snag from Cuban leader Fidel Castro. She said that she was able to get the interview because she didn't care about his politics. We spent 12 days together. I was not interested as a political leader, but as a man. He understood that I had gone there to massacre him and accepted with joy. However, she made occasional film and television appearances in the 1980s and 90s, most notably a recurring role in 1984 in the TV series Falcon Crest. In the 21st century, she also worked as a sculptor. Her last film appearance was in 1997 before she officially retired from acting. Vanity Fair reported her fortune may have been worth around $50 million. "I never cared about money," she said. She sold some of her jewellery at Sotheby's, netted around $5 million, which she donated for stem cell research. She's also recognised as a Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations. According to a love story that has been widely reported, it was in 1984, at a party in Monaco where she maintains residency and also owns a villa, that Gina met Javier Rigo y Rafols, a tall, charming Spaniard. In October 2006 they went public with their relationship and announced their imminent wedding. 2 months later, however, she called off the wedding. Gina blamed intense media scrutiny for the cancellation. That turned out to be the case in 2010 when a former flame named Javier Rigo Rafols allegedly tried to scheme her out of her fortune. In 2015, Lollobrigida accused Rafols of staging a secret wedding in Barcelona with a look-alike in order to gain access to her fortune. She told the courts, "It was never a proper relationship. He was never very affectionate towards me. He kept his distance." She claims that she didn't even know about the marriage until she saw the court documents online. Unfortunately, Lollobrigida lost the case in 2017, but she plans on appealing. In June 1999, she turned to politics and ran, unsuccessfully, for one of Italy's 87 European Parliament seats from her hometown of Subiaco. "I studied painting and sculpting at school and became an actress by mistake. We're glad she made that mistake." Gina went on to say, "I've had many lovers and still have romances. I am very spoiled. All my life, I've had too many admirers." If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Gina Lollobrigida? As Europe's most erotic film icon, she also found success abroad.